was on the way to my grandma's house about 4 years ago, and this big flash of light in the sky appeared with all different colors coming down from it, and it was like it was going to land right in front of us. And it never did. It just shot up in the air all of a sudden really fast, and it was right before Christmas time. And my mom and everyone else saw it, and we really thought it was neat.
We noticed a very bright star-like object raised behind the rim of the forest. It was rising slowly at an angle in our direction. Then, when it had reached a considerable height and was right above us, we saw a flash like an explosion. Then this object turned and disappeared out of sight of tremendous speed.
While the sightings in the Soviet Union are sensational, the story of Gulf Breeze will play a major role in our program tonight. We're down here in Florida, where we've assembled a whole town full of people who say they've seen the UFO that's haunted this community since last November.
The fact that we are in contact with the extraterrestrials shouldn't be hidden from the people.
My name is William Coleman. When I was at the Pentagon, I was Public Information Officer for Project Blue Book. Before that, I was a fighter-bomber pilot, and I saw a flying saucer.
We in the Soviet Union are interested in exchanging information on UFOs and extraterrestrials.
Heads have very oval-shaped eyes, very narrow nose, slit for a mouth, slits for ears, no hair on the head, kind of a bulb-shaped head.
Tonight, for the first time in history, men and women from all over the world come together via satellite to share their experiences about unidentified flying objects. Live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., LBS presents, in association with Seligman Productions, UFO Cover Up, live. Please welcome the distinguished actor-producer, our host, Mike Farrell.
Good evening. What do a colonel in the United States Air Force, a waiter in the Soviet Union, a teacher in California, and a former United States president have in common? Well, they all claim to have witnessed unidentified flying objects in the skies. What we're dealing with tonight is a subject of universal interest. Whatever your view, in the next 2 hours you'll hear claims and counterclaims. You'll hear some astounding, perhaps disturbing things which, if true, could have far-reaching implications in our lives. As is so often the case in complex questions, it comes down to our assessment of the credibility of the individual. So in this show, you can take part by giving your opinion as to that credibility. You'll also have the opportunity to report your own experience. Do saucers and ETs exist? Does your government know about them? If so, are they covering it up? Why? Well, let's find out more.
It's a U-shaped craft. I don't know how large it was because it's hard to scale distance in terms of how far I was. My sister and I were just walking around the block, and we looked up, and there were, lights on the bottom part of it that we could see as we looked up. And
this person has experienced a close encounter of the first kind. You've had a close encounter of the first kind if you've seen a daylight disk or nocturnal light UFO at close range. On April 14, 1984, hundreds of people in the small mining town of Morenci, Arizona, witnessed a huge boomerang-shaped object in the sky. Close encounters of the second kind are visual evidence of a UFO's landing, such as impressions made by the craft, burned or irradiated soil, trees, or grass. In August of 1979 in northern Minnesota, when Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson encountered a brilliantly lighted object, his vehicle was knocked off the road, the hood dented, 2 antennae bent, and a headlamp broken. In a close encounter of the third kind, which Steven Spielberg made famous, the witness observes or actually confronts the occupants of the UFO. Close encounters of the fourth kind include people who claim to have been abducted by extraterrestrials. In almost every case, abductees also claim to have been medically examined by the ETs and eventually returned home, unable to account for the missing time. Now, there is a nominal charge of $1 on your phone bill for each call to our 900 number. The phones are active only in the United States and Canada from 8 p.m. Friday, October 14th through 1 a.m. Saturday, October 15th, Eastern Daylight Time. So, if you've had a close encounter of the first kind, please call 1-900-400-6181. Close encounters of the second kind, call 1-900-400-6182. If you've experienced a close encounter of the third kind, please call 1-900-400-6183. That's only if you've had a third kind encounter, though, not if you've just seen the movie. If you had a close encounter of the fourth kind and you are back, we're anxious to hear from you. Please call 1-900-400-6184. Finally, if you have never had an encounter with an unidentified flying object, please call 1-900-400-6185. If you haven't had an encounter with a UFO and would like to, that's a long-distance call, and I don't have the number. Tonight, some of the world's leading UFO experts are joining us here in Washington, D.C. Now, welcome the author of The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, the distinguished astrophysicist, Dr. Thomas McDonough. Dr. McDonough, welcome to the show.
It's great to be part of this event.
In your opinion, are we alone in the universe?
Well, my own estimate is that just in our galaxy alone, there could be millions of planets that might be capable of sustaining life as we know it. The size of the universe is difficult to comprehend. In this galaxy, there are several hundred billion stars. Each one of these dots represents a galaxy, like our Milky Way. There are billions of them. So the sheer enormity of the numbers leads many scientists like myself to conclude that there must be life somewhere in the universe.
Now, there are many theories about the origin of life. How do you think life first began in the universe?
Well, that's where the cosmic cookbook of life comes in. It goes like this. Take one medium-sized planet and place it near an average-sized star. Don't put it too close to the fire or it will burn, not too far away or it will freeze. Add water, ammonia, methane gas, and electricity in the form of lightning to get things going. Stir and wait patiently. But you'll have to be very patient. It might take several hundred million years. But sooner or later, we think that some of those molecules will make bigger ones, and the bigger ones will make even bigger ones, and then reproduction will begin, and life is born. But perhaps the most important lesson we'll learn about life here on Earth is that it is incredibly adaptable. From prehistoric times until today, from the depths of the ocean to the driest deserts, to the freezing cold at the highest mountain peaks, life forms on Earth are thriving. The reason I believe life probably exists elsewhere is the widespread availability of the ingredients in the cosmic cookbook of life.
So if extraterrestrials exist and are visiting us, then how do they get from there to here?
One possibility is that in space you could accelerate until you were very close to the speed of light. With fusion rockets using the abundant hydrogen and helium already in space, so the rocket wouldn't have to be burdened carrying fuel, you could increase your energy by millions of times compared with conventional rockets. So, within our lifetime, even with our primitive technology, according to scientists Robert Bussard, Robert Forward, and Stanton Friedman, round trips to nearby stars could very well be feasible. We are close to being able to get from here to there.
Thank you, Dr. Tom McDonough.
Stay with us. Bill Moore and Jamie Chandere introduce us to their government informants, codenamed Falcon and Condor. To protect their identities, they were photographed in shadow with their voices disguised. Stay with UFO Cover Up Live and find out why Project Blue Book was classified top secret when we come back after this. Once again, live from Washington, D.C., your host, Mike Farrell.
With all the UFO sightings reported over the years in America, the logical question is, if they really exist, why don't they visit the White House? And then there they were, all of a sudden, on July 26, 1952. The Air Force tried and failed to intercept up to a dozen UFOs in the sky over the White House. The press conference 2 days later became the largest media event since the end of World War II.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
With all due respect to the Air Force, I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin.
In my position in the Research and Development Organization of the Bureau of Aeronautics and of the Navy Department, I am thoroughly familiar with both our aircraft and our guided missiles programs and can state without reservation that the Navy has no saucer-shaped aircraft or missile in any of these programs.
Headlines around the country aroused so much attention that the Air Force formed an official investigative unit, Project Blue Book. With me now are two retired Air Force colonels who were actively involved in that inquiry. Colonel Robert Friend, who headed up Project Blue Book for 5 years, and Colonel William Coleman, a former Air Force squadron commander who was Pentagon spokesman and chief of public information for the Air Force. Colonel Friend, Colonel Coleman, welcome. Gentlemen, has the Air Force been involved with UFOs before the White House incident?
During World War II, our pilots saw what were called gremlins and Foo Fighters. These were fireballs that appeared to fly along with our aircraft.
We were concerned that these so-called Foo Fighters or fireballs might be foreign weapons that could threaten our national security.
And did the Air Force ever try to chase a UFO?
Yes, in fact, in 1948, one of our pilots crashed in pursuit of a UFO. The story made headlines all over the world.
As I understand it, that crash added impetus to the conclusion that UFOs were extraterrestrial visitors.
That's true, but the Air Force rejected the conclusion on the grounds of insufficient evidence. Even the name of the project was changed from Sign to Grudge during that period to preclude this unhealthy association. However, by the time Blue Book was involved, we started running into trouble. Hearings and inquiries regarding the way in which we were performing UFO investigations, in every instance, the Congress of the United States concurred in the way in which we conducted these projects. However, we were not disappointed with the 1969 decision to discontinue Project Blue Book.
Out of the 12,000 reported UFO sightings, only 700 remain unexplained. Of that remainder, 100 of them really worried us.
Why was that?
Because these 100 sightings involved the two criteria that defined a worrisome phenomenon: high strangeness and high credibility, meaning that highly credible, multiple witnesses, like military airline pilots, see something they've never seen before.
Have either of you ever seen a UFO?
Yes, it was 1955, and I was a squadron commander at the time. We were flying a B-25 over Alabama when we spotted a strange silvery object some 25,000 feet above us, heading in the same direction. Since we were overtaking it, I changed course and eventually got within 1/8 of a mile of it, literally right on top of the thing.
So you must have gotten a fairly good look at it.
We certainly did. The whole crew. It was wingless, a disc some 70 feet in diameter, 15 feet thick at the center, your average run-of-the-mill flying saucer.
Well, what happened then?
It performed an astonishing maneuver. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. But we chased it and caught sight of it again. It was skimming over a farmer's field, kicking up vortexes of red dust as it flew. We closed in on it from behind the trees, but it vanished.
Did you make a report of this incident?
Well, I wrote up reports. I was later debriefed by an intelligence officer. And years later, when I was on Project Blue Book, I tried to find my report. It was not in the files.
Not in the files. Now, you say you saw this object at point-blank range. Could it have been a balloon or an experimental aircraft?
Absolutely not. It displayed a level of technology far beyond anything I had seen on the Earth then and now.
With this advanced level of technology, were you ever concerned that the object could be a threat to national security?
No, not necessarily a threat to our national security, but I was uneasy about these UFOs because they were able to accomplish aerial feats that we couldn't. The apparent capability of these objects could possibly represent a threat to our national security.
What's become of Project Blue Book?
That's it, Mike. It was canceled in 1969 and will not be reactivated.
Well, Colonel Coleman, Colonel Friend, thank you both. And while we're on the subject of Blue Book, let's hear another view from a scientist currently working for the government. Now, because he has insisted on anonymity, both his appearance and his voice have been altered, but his credentials have been thoroughly researched by the investigative team of Bill Moore and Jamie Chandray. They've given him the code name Condor.